local level. I'd like to introduce you to your presenter today, which is Wayne Stuckey. Wayne is the past president of the National Lutheran Association on Scouting and a member of the BSA National Religious Relationships Support Committee. A former Scoutmaster, Wayne has served on Wood Badge and NYLT staffs. A former Scoutmaster, Wayne has served on Wood Badge and NYLT staffs, taught at his council's University of Scouting, served on Lutheran exhibit staffs at 3 National Scout Jamborees, taught at the Scouting in the Lutheran Church Conference at Philmont Training Center, and directed youth leadership training in his truth as a youth run and youth taught course from 2003 to 2015. A strong advocate of the Religious Emblems program, Wayne has received the Lutheran Lamb and God in Service Awards, Silver Beaver, Vigil Honor in the Order of the Arrow, and the National President Scoutmasters Award of Merit. Thank y'all for joining us today, and Wayne, take it away.
Well, thank you for coming back this afternoon to the third in our series of introduction to Duty to God in the Scouting program. Well, on Monday we did advancement. On Wednesday, we did support of Duty to God at the national level, and today is Duty to God at the local level. Kristen Rogan is my backup presenter and a very active member and supporter in NLAS. Kristen seems to have had trouble getting here from her work. She gets off not long before 3 Central Time, but thought she could make it. So my Zoom techie, Kay Stuckey, who is my wife and has enabled me to do the scouting that I have done, is going to double up as the chat moderator. I found out yesterday when I had to switch computers rapidly to this laptop that I really can't see people raising their hands. I'm focusing on the slide presentation. So if you would kindly use the chat, Kay will monitor the chat, and then at the end, I hope we have time, we'll try to open up and do some talking and also refer to chat questions. So supporting Duty to God at the local level, things we're going to talk about, having a council level religious relationships committee, having Duty to God events at the council level, recruiting chaplains for council camps and district events. When I used to go to district events like District Camp Paris, we would have worship services, Scouts worship for Jewish, Catholic, Protestant. There would be multiple clergy there. I haven't seen that for a long time. Encouraging units, another thing that we do at the local level is to encourage units to use the chaplain, which is an adult position, and the chaplain aide positions at the unit level, and to take the position-specific training for chaplains and chaplain aides. Use the religious emblems coordinator positions that have been created for the council district and unit levels to promote the religious emblems, and use a faith group, scouting liaison organization. And I'll talk about the one I know, which is the National Lutheran Association on Scouting, as an example. The late Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, once said that all politics is local. Well, all scouting is local too. The unit is where scouting happens. And if you're going to do something like emphasize a value, it has to occur at the local level or it won't happen. A council level religious relationships committee helps the council to reinforce this core value of duty to God by making opportunities for children, youth, adults, and families to grow and learn about others' faiths through local religious organizations. Now, I typically give these 3 sessions in the beginning day of the Scouting in the Lutheran Church Conference out at Philmont. And then we go into more depth on many, many other topics. Well, I've seen that happening here on the Virtual Faith Week. And there was an excellent talk on Tuesday about establishing a local, a council, a religious relationships committee. And I also have a presentation referenced here at the bottom that I recommend that you also look at. So those two things, go back and find that presentation and look at this if you're interested in, if your interest lies in establishing a council religious relationships committee. What do they do? Well, they help to promote relationships with the faith-based charter organizations. That is, those faith groups who charter scouting units in the local area. Use your universities of scouting and other training events that you have to increase the awareness of the religious emblems for both your leaders and your youth members. Recognize those youth who receive religious emblems through congratulatory letters and dinners of recognition. Once a year, we have a recognition dinner for adult leaders in the council. We have recognition of the Eagle Scout class for the year. We have OA Lodge dinners to recognize the achievements of the OA youth and the new leaders. Why don't we have a dinner to recognize those youth who have received the religious emblems through the year? Recruit, train, and provide chaplains for the council camps who can be plugged into the local religious organizations better than the local or the council religious relationships committee. I told you about the old district events, but in the Baltimore area, there is a Catholic seminary right downtown. There is a rabbinical college downtown in Baltimore. There are 2 Lutheran seminaries out at Gettysburg and up at Philadelphia. Why don't we have seminarians driving over to camp on Tuesday night, providing chaplains for Scouts worship while they're at summer camp? Have a council-wide emphasis on the observance of Scout Sunday, Scout Sabbath, and Scout Juma, and other religious observances for faith groups that are in the region. Make it a big deal. Hold faith-based retreats and religious emblems workshops. The great American philosopher, Garrison Keillor, once said, "I don't know why they call them retreats. They ought to be called advances." And have the Religious Relationships Committee represent the diversity of faith groups in your area. Now, what is a duty to God event that I talked about? Well, it's a council-wide or at least multi-district activity for Scouts and Scouters from multiple faiths. Ideally, it will be planned and led by youth, or at least they'll be deeply involved in it. Get it on your council calendar to hold the place and to minimize conflicts with other activities. And some examples are a faith walk or a 10 Commandments hike. There was a talk on that just Tuesday. So you go to multiple faith houses of worship. Have a duty to God camporee, or maybe even a summer camp week for duty to God activities. Have a multi-faith religious emblems recognition event, that dinner that I was talking about. Have a council duty to God breakfast or dinner with religious emblems recognition. Have a council-wide interfaith service, perhaps with religious emblems recognition. In the Baltimore Area Council, the Archdiocese of Baltimore has a Scout Mass each spring in March. And it's a full Catholic Mass, but also Scouts of all faiths are invited to come. And I have seen religious awards handed out to Scouts of all faiths, Jewish, Protestant, at the Scout Mass. Emphasize at the council level, let's all go and support Scout Sunday, Scout Sabbath, Scout Juma. Let them know that we're here and that we appreciate what they're doing. Have a council day of service, like maybe go down to the inner city and do a cleanup of the streets. They're always needing it. Or do a fix-up of an inner city church. Or maybe it's time to have a charter partner recruitment drive. In Baltimore, for instance, all summer long, except of course for this summer, they have ethnic festivals. Wouldn't it be great to go down to those ethnic festivals and set up a display that's recruiting Scouts, even if it's for a particular religious group at a time? Here's an example of a 10 Commandments hike that was done at the Laurel Highlands Council in Pittsburgh in 2017. It was a 4-mile hike where they visited 8 houses of worship. And look at the things they learned. They learned about Jewish, Anglican, Baptist, Byzantine Catholic, Buddhist, Roman Catholic, Christian Scientist, Hindu, Greek Orthodox, Muslim, and Zoroastrianism beliefs and worship practices. The 10 Commandments hike was sponsored by the Jewish Committee on Scouting for the Boy Scouts Laurel Highlands Council. And they had on their website, at the link that I provided here, how they organized this event. So there's a resource. Down in Baltimore, there is the Walters Art Museum, which is really an excellent place that you can go and see 2,000 years of manuscripts, sculpture, paintings, 2,000 years of religious faith and artifacts in a 2-hour walk through the museum. Rabbi Rockmiel Tobesman, Rabbi Rock from the Baltimore Area Council, likes to organize this event. That's Rabbi Rock down there in the corner. A Duty to God retreat, also in the Baltimore Area Council. They have the Scout is Reverent retreat. It occurs on the first weekend in May, except of course this year. It's a spring weekend retreat that the youth plan and the youth run in a fashion similar to NYLT. It's booked onto the Baltimore Area Council camp calendar as an annual council event. And just recently it's begun to be a clear calendar event. That is, it's blocked for this event. There are no competing camporees happening at camp. There's no OA ordeals or anything like that. Youth staff selection begins immediately after the last retreat. Sometimes it begins at the last retreat by nominating and selecting a senior patrol leader. Training and planning of the youth really begins in January. The Duty to God retreat is a themed event, and they plan numerous activities and they divvy up the responsibilities. And of course, with a theme, you have to make a patch. There are activities for Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, Venturers, Girl Scouts, American Heritage Girls, Scouts with disabilities. We've had Scouts some years come down from Canada, not this year, of course. The sponsorship alternates between the Baltimore Area Council, Jewish Committee on Scouting, and the Baltimore Archdiocese Catholic Committee on Scouting. Participation by Lutheran groups, sadly, is lacking. One of the times I went, I don't recall, 2017, 18, 19, there were 2 Lutherans there, and I was one of them. Meals are provided, and they pay attention to dietary restrictions. That means it usually falls to the Jewish Committee on Scouting. They bring out food, they bring out the equipment that they need, and they set up a kosher kitchen at the dining hall out there at camp. The things that are done, they have round robin activities with various spiritual messages, faith-specific displays, faith-specific worship opportunities. For instance, there is always a Jewish service, there is always a Protestant service, there is always a Catholic Mass done there at the Duty to God retreat. One time, the mother of 2 Hindu scouts came out and in the corner of the dining hall set up a table for a Hindu prayer table so that everybody could see what was going on there. Sometimes we have helpful classes that you might find, for instance, you think of maybe at NYLT, class against bullying and how to prevent bullying, class on conflict resolution. I mentioned using the chaplains and the chaplain aides. The national level Religious Relationships Committee has provided a number of training materials for this. The chaplain specific training is right on my.scouting.org, just like other position specific training. And there is a manual there for chaplains and chaplain aides at that link. And there is an advanced training course for unit chaplains and chaplain aides at the link that I provided there. Another thing that a council level religious relationships committee can do to boost morale is to have things like a patch, a religious relationships committee patch, a neckerchief, maybe make a banner like you see there on the left that's displaying the religious emblems for many, many of the faith groups. Or you could have a banner that advertises a particular faith liaison group, like a Lutheran Scouting Association. I threw Gene Butler under the bus there. The National Religious Relationships Committee, for which Gene is the BSA professional, had made up some of these as examples. Amanda has told me that she thinks they are out of stock, but you could write to Gene or call him up and say, hey, are you making any more of these? And if not, well, you can get them made up yourself. Think how neat it would be. Okay, so what are these faith-based scouting organizations? Well, there's a scouting liaison group for almost every faith-specific charter partner. I have a slide at the end called Use Your Resources that lists many of them. That BSA Duty to God brochure that is available for download from the file store at that number for a PDF. There's, you can go to praypub.org and they run a search by faith contact information thing on a page, not just for the Protestants and independent churches that they administer the religious emblems for, but for all of the faith groups that they know of. So they do a real service there. These associations typically encourage the faith-based charter organizations, let's say the churches or the congregations, to support scouting programs and the religious emblems. And then they encourage the youth serving partners, let's say BSA or AHG or Girl Scouts, to include and promote duty to God in their programs. So it's a two-way facing organization typically. I'll give you some examples based on what I know the National Lutheran Association on Scouting. So NLAS operates in partnership with the offices of youth ministry of the two largest National Lutheran Church bodies, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America and the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, to encourage Lutheran congregations and organizations to extend their ministry to children, youth, and families using programs of the BSA and similar youth-serving agencies. So looking at the congregations, what do? We advocate the use of scouting-type programs in the youth ministry of Lutheran congregations. They can consider it, use it as part of their mission and outreach into the community. A few statistics here. It's estimated that 30 to 60%, and depending on your demographics, maybe more than 60%, of youth participants who come into a scouting program have no affiliation with any church. And up to 12% of those participating in scouting will become members of the chartering congregation if they are made to feel welcomed in the church. That is, if the church feels that it owns the scouting unit and they do things together and they mutually support each other, the parents and the children are likely to migrate from the basement up to the sanctuary. It occurs to me that there are very few evangelism programs that you can do that are likely to get you a 12% return on members for your congregation. The congregations in turn can use scouting as their youth program. The congregation owns the unit. You can do the focus of that unit, and you get to pick the leadership, pick and approve the leadership for the unit. That's your responsibility as the charter organization. It operates through the core, or the charter organization representative. So you can use this as your youth program, but it has access to all the BSA facilities and activities and high adventure elements that we typically think of with scouting. And now that it's now available for the whole family, both boys and girls. I used to go out and do some of these advocacy presentations to Lutheran congregations, and they used to ask me, well, what about the girls? And of course, I would stutter a little bit and talk about venturing. And then I would say something about, let's say, American Heritage Girls. But now the whole family program is there for BSA. Again, still with Lutheran congregations, we encourage the congregations to use the religious emblems programs. We talked about that more in depth yesterday, but many pastors aren't really familiar with the religious emblems programs, so you may have to educate them. And a good way to educate them would be to appoint religious emblems coordinators from your congregation to their unit. And that religious emblems coordinator can help to educate the pastor. And then you recruit, just like you recruit other adult members, religious emblems counselors. Those are the teachers. And you encourage congregations to appoint chaplains, the pastor or other designated spiritual layperson, to help maintain the spiritual uplift in the unit, and encourage the congregations to support Scout Sunday. Now, turning around with the youth partners, we advocate the emphasis on duty to God in programs of the BSA and the other youth partners. I told you yesterday that at the national level, the National Religious Relationships Committee, we're actually looking for places that don't have the emphasis on duty to God and actively trying to promote it there. We partner with the programs of religious activities with youth, or pray to promote the use of the religious emblems program. We have an exhibit at the National Scout Jamboree. It's a witnessing exhibit, and me see if I can bring up Martin Luther there. That was the one we had in 2017. And it was a real delight and a treat. We were celebrating the 500th anniversary of the Lutheran Reformation in 2017. It was a delight to stand in front of Martin Luther's rose there and tell people about the faith as it's represented on that rose. Faith alone, scripture alone, grace alone. And it was also fun to tell about the story of Martin Luther, who was actually kidnapped and kept in a castle. The kids really came around and really enjoyed hearing about that. We enable and encourage leaders at the Scouting in the Lutheran Church Conference at Philmont Training Center. And I did tell you already that these three presentations that I'm doing here are really basically opening day presentations to just as an introduction to say these are the things that we'll be looking at in depth later in the week. We have representatives in multiple groups of the National Religious Relationships Support Committee, and I can't pass Jim Marchbank without him asking me, hey, when are you going to get somebody on my committee? We recruit and validate Lutheran chaplains for the BSA National Jamboree, Philmont, National Order of the Arrow conferences. Now, when I say validate, people don't just sign up for chaplain and then say, hey, I'm a chaplain. That goes through, that application gets referred back to our lead Lutheran chaplain through NLAS, and that Lutheran chaplain interviews them and checks out their credentials with their own district or synod before they become Lutheran chaplains. Also, with the youth serving partners, we advocate the emphasis on duty to God in the scouting programs. We support the printing, along with other Christian partners at the NRRC, of the New Testament with Psalms that we hand out at the BSA High Adventure bases. We encourage the units, of course, to use the religious emblems coordinators, chaplains, and chaplet aides. We provide certificates and letters of recognition for Lutheran youth who receive the religious emblems or who earned Eagle Scout, Girl Scout Gold, or AHG Stars and Stripes Award. We have a, oops, I pressed too soon. We have a scholarship to recognize, 2 scholarships actually, to recognize religious emblem 4-star recipients. That's by application, which is available on our website, nlas.org. We have recognitions for adult leaders through the Lutheran Lamb and the Servant of Youth Awards, and recognition to units through the Lutheran Recognition of Excellence, again, which is on our website. So here's my resources page, using your resources for sort of a take home. And that is the end of my talk. So let me get out of sharing and see if we have some questions on chat or some comments. If you guys want to go ahead and unmute yourselves.
Could you please show that resource page again for about 30 seconds?
Let me see if I can. Okay, can you see this page? I guess I'm not sharing with you, right?
Not yet.
Okay. Let me get out of.
All of the PowerPoints are linked to the main site at the end. You'll be able to have access to them as long as
Yeah,
you want.
you will be able to download your own copy. Okay, now I have to try to share my screen and then flip that back to the presentation mode. Well,
This is a wonderful set of presentations, by the way. Thank you so much.
well, thank you.
He does a fantastic job.
I saw Kristen's name flash up. Hi, Kristen.
Hi, Wayne. You did a wonderful job.
Thank you. So you got home from work today, huh, in time?
Yes.
Okay, is that good for that page? Should I stop sharing again?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I see 21 on the chat, but I don't read them. Do we have questions that other people didn't answer already? Holy smokes, family retreat with Dewey to God. I like that. Cast iron cooking. That's from Kenneth in the Kansas City, Kansas Diocese Committee.
Will that PowerPoint with the links on it be put into the Google Drive as well?
It is there, yes.
Great, thank you.
Is it for all Lutheran? Kristen, I'm not quite sure what you were asking. Kristen Rogan was saying, Beth, is it all for Lutheran? For all Lutheran?
They were. She was asking about the conference, our Lutheran conference, and if it was for Missouri Synod, ELCA, or other. And I said it was for all Lutheran. So we're Big Tent Lutheran.
The answer is yes. If you are a Lutheran, you know how odd it is to have a joint event between the ELCA and the Missouri Synod.
And even if you're not Lutheran, we'll take you anyway.
That's right.
I have a question. Other than like an introduction to religious emblems, what have been the most effective sort of classes to be given at University of Scouting at the council level that people have had?
Oh, wow. That's a hard question to answer. There's so much that's done there at the University of Scouting that people even work on doctorates in specific areas at that. I know I've enjoyed a bunch of things there, like making neckerchief slides and doing geocaching and things like that. But they teach some. Someone is saying? Specific
to religious relationships.
Oh, okay. So I've done a course myself a couple of times right around when the Cub Scout program was changing its advancement thing, where I was briefing Cub Scout leaders on what the new advancement requirements were, especially involving duty to God, and an introduction to the religious emblems, what they were, for instance, things like that.
Deb Sitz from Chicago is on this page too. Hello, Deb. I'm in Indiana, Northwest Indiana. Deb and I share a lot of activities together, and we try to make sure that if something's happening, we're in there promoting the Catholic awards, and we get people to come in and do the other awards during the scouting.
During University of Scouting.
Thank you, yes.
Yeah, we've actually done counselor training as a module for University of Scouting.
Good idea.
And then we've done sort of a general multi-faith where at least 3 major denominations have put on their basic information during one session at the University of Scouting.
We tend to do counselor training at the Lutheran Conference. In fact, Kristen is the person who has been leading it most recently.
Can I make a comment, Wayne?
I'm sorry, I didn't get you, Don.
Yeah, could I make a comment?
Sure.
In the Heart of America Council in Kansas City, we have a really large University of Scouting, and for the past 2 years now, we've had increased the number of religious courses in the university. We've had anywhere from 5 to 7 different courses. A lot of those have been a total flop. I've taught the religious emblems class, overview class, for a number of years, and it's fairly well represented. But in the last 2 years, 2 classes that we've had that have been extremely well attended. One, oddly, is the Religious Emblems Coordinator training. That kind of surprised me that we have a good turnout for that. And the other one is we have an interfaith, back-to-back interfaith classes where we have 3 to 4 different faiths talk about their particular faith beliefs. So we might have the Hindu and the Buddhist and the Sikh in one of the classes. And that has been dynamite. People have really been interested in that one.
I'm looking at a couple of comments about chaplain aid training. No, that's not on myscouting.org. That's adult position specific training. But then there are trainings that are meant for chaplains and chaplain aides that are also available. I think they're from scouting.org as file stores. And there's actually an advanced course for chaplain and chaplain aide training on there. I believe it was Susan's group that developed that.
A note on the different religions. You're talking about the Sikh, and at the jamboree, last jamboree, the Catholics were making rosaries next to the Sikhs who were wrapping the kids' heads. So they get their head wrapped with the turban, then they come over and make a rosary.
Yes, they were.
They love it. They love that section. The kids do. They want to know everything about your religion. They have great questions when they come up to your booth.
They do. It's amazing. I've had young people just walk up to me and say, "What do Lutherans believe?"
Yes.
Okay, someone put on where the online chaplain training is. I see that there.
And Wayne, just to comment on that, there were a few other references made to the manual that can be downloaded from the scouting.org website. And I would remind you that when you get that, you need to take a close look at it because it hasn't been updated in a number of years. And you might be a little bit surprised at some of the changes that have been evolving and are now part of the online chaplain's aid training.
I think the advanced course, Susan, is a recent thing though, isn't it? I thought it was just like 2 years ago you put that up there.
The brand new online chaplaincy training came out at the end of 2018, and it has come out with the changes in since we have girls in scouting. So the language should be good and consistent and updated. There is no chaplain aid training, but if you get your chaplains trained, it talks kind of a little bit about mentorship, and you can kind of go from there. So yeah, we're kind of sending everybody to the new online training, and it takes a little over an hour. There are 3 different modules to it, and it does have resources attached at the end of it. So it's a great place to start as a jumping off point.
That advanced chaplain's aid training is 2.5 days. So I find it a little bit challenging to get our youth to be involved in that for that length of time.
It's a good weekend training, that's for sure.
They seem to be busy.
Okay, how are we doing? I think that Amanda told me she has another class running at 4:45.
I need to get a classroom open soon, so yeah.
Okay, so if there are any last nickels, let's have them, but otherwise we should abandon the channel for Amanda. I want to throw in my thanks too for Amanda and Susan. You guys have done an outstanding job putting this together.
It's been fun getting to meet all of you virtually.
Okay, I think that's it. So I'm going to punch my leave button and you can dump us all.
Thank you.
So long.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Amen.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.